I can see being a teacher or a marathon runner, but both, that's hard to fathom. Welcome to Hack Learning. It's what you can do tomorrow. I'm your host, Mark Barnes. In the open, you heard me say that it's hard to fathom someone being both a teacher and a marathon runner. Two incredibly challenging things, but there are those people. I have come to learn in the publishing of the book, Chasing Greatness, 26.2 Ways Teaching is Like Running a Marathon by Mike Roberts. I'm very excited that this book has come out. It's not a hack learning book, but there are so many things in here that can help you hack learning, hack teaching, hack running, or hack anything that would make you better at what you do. And that's what this book, Chasing Greatness, is all about. Mike Roberts is a Utah English Teacher of the Year. He is a guy who has run more than 50 marathons, if you can even imagine that, ultra marathons, 100-mile races. It's just incredible. And Mike is also the author of Hacking Classroom Management. And what you learn about Mike is that he is someone who truly believes that teachers can be better every single day. And in being better every day, he thinks that we can make kids better every day too. And that's what he has written in Hacking Classroom Management. And there's so much more of it in Chasing Greatness. And I want to share a story that will help you understand that. The idea that you can chase greatness, and it is sort of an ongoing race. And you can, by running that race, be better every day. Listen to what Mike Roberts says in this portion of Chasing Greatness called The Running Begins. The year was 2007. I was an out-of-shape and overweight 33-year-old. And in an attempt to turn my health around, I decided I was going to run from my house to the local high school, run 4 laps around the track, then head back home. All told, this journey should have been about 1.5 miles. Having never run more than a mile in my life, I wasn't prepared for the challenge that I had laid out. Nonetheless, I jumped into my basketball shorts, laced up my high tops, and headed out the door, ready to turn my life around. I didn't even make it to the high school. Nope. Before I even made it to the end of my street, I felt like my heart was going to burst out of my chest and my calves were going to explode like microwaved hot dogs. I was sweating more than I thought was humanly possible. And being that I had never run any type of long distance in my life, I was clueless about bringing water with me to cool down. Simply put, my body just wasn't ready for what I was asking it to do. And rather than risking what I felt was certain death, I turned around and walked home. But as I shuffled back toward my house, gasping for air, I tried to look at things from a positive perspective. I reminded myself that the quarter mile I just finished was still the farthest I had run during the past 20 years. Granted, it was a total disaster, but it was something. And while I didn't know at the time, this was the start of my running journey. Broken but not defeated, I decided to give running another shot a few days later. This time, based on the previous failure, I cut my goal down to only 2 laps around the track. I knew that if I wanted running to become part of my daily life, I would have to be patient and let it come to me little by little. And this new goal seemed much more manageable than the previous one. And yet again, I didn't even make it to the high school before fatigue set in. But rather than turning around, I decided to keep going. Unable to run, I slowly crossed the street, regaining my breath little by little with each step. A few minutes later, with my breathing a bit more under control, I found myself standing on the track at the high school. And while the next 10 minutes included a combination of running, walking, and resting, I was somehow able to complete 2 laps around the track. It was a small victory to say the least, but a victory nonetheless. As for the walk home, well, let's just say I didn't set any speed records. Over the next few weeks and months, courtesy of twice-a-week training, my speed and mileage began to inch up. And while the gains were slow, I had decided that if I wanted to get into shape, running was going to play a role in my transformation. To help, I set a goal of increasing my weekly mileage by 1 mile per week. This not only helped me get out the door on a regular basis, but also provided me with a target that was both manageable and within reason. While an additional mile per week might not sound like much, it definitely added up. In fact, by the end of my third month of running, I was putting in 25 miles per week. 25 miles. That was well beyond anything I ever thought I could do when I was walking back from the school on that first day. It was also when I first gave some thought to running a marathon. But just as a reminder, a marathon is 26.2 miles all at once. So while I felt a sense of accomplishment about my 25-mile week, I also knew there was still a lot of work to do if I hoped to cross a marathon finish line in the future. As it turns out, a marathon, like most things worth doing, takes time and effort to prepare for. And it took me almost 3 years from that initial run before I toed the starting line of my first marathon. 3 years of commitment, screw-ups, and microscopic improvements, and it was worth every step. For me, teaching began in much the same way as running. I was near the end of my junior year of college, and while I had officially declared myself an English major with a history minor, I still didn't have a clue as to what I was going to do after graduation. In the back of my mind, I had always considered teaching as an option, but I wasn't sure if I was grown up enough for such a serious job. When I began my senior year, I decided to dip my foot into the teaching waters by registering for the Introduction to Education class offered at my school. I thought I could use the class as a barometer to see whether or not I should pursue teaching as a career. At best, it would light my fire and start me on my teaching journey. At worst, I would drop the class and continue trying to figure out my direction. I don't remember much about that first class, except that quite a bit of information was shared about educational theory. I remember feeling a lot of talking was going on, without much being said. Looking back, I realized that my boredom stemmed from the fact that I didn't care much about theorists from the past. What I wanted to talk about was the future of education, including all the cool ways school could be used to improve society. I wanted to discuss my innovative ideas regarding how I'd run my class, and hope to hear other people and their ideas of school and its future as well. And while the thought of being a teacher had drawn me to the class, I was still looking for that extra push to really sell me on the idea. And theory from the past wasn't doing it for me. So I walked out. Yep, I didn't even make it through the entire class. But over the course of the next week, as I sat through my English and history classes, I couldn't shake the idea, or more accurately, the feeling, that I should at least reconsider being a teacher. Like on my first run, I decided that though my career in education wasn't off to a great start, I'd give it another shot. And while the second class wasn't what I'd call the most exhilarating educational experience of my life, I did manage to make it through the entire session. And by the end of the semester, I had not only learned a thing or two about the history of education, I also discovered that this teaching thing might be worth pursuing. This has been an excerpt from Chasing Greatness, 26.2 Ways Teaching is Like Running a Marathon by Mike Roberts, Utah State English Teacher of the Year and runner of over 50 marathons. In this excerpt, what I learn is that this idea of chasing greatness is an important one for educators and runners. I think that a lot of people would say, well, why do I need to be chasing greatness? Why not just be the best that I can be? And I think the idea of chasing greatness is precisely that we should constantly try to be the best that we can be. Mike explains how he wanted to get in shape, something that's really important. And he felt like he could do that by running. And he thought he could do more in the beginning than he could. He learned from that experience, and he decided that he would try again. And that's an important lesson for educators and for kids, that we need to accept failure, and we need to learn from it, and we need iteration. We need to start over. We need to do something different. And Mike outlines that in that excerpt, how he did a few things different, and he set realistic goals. Another really important lesson for educators, runners, and anyone in life, and one we need to be passing on to our kids. I see so many amazing things in this brief excerpt from this amazing book about how we can continue to strive for our own personal greatness in whatever it is we do. And I hope you will check out Chasing Greatness. It's available now on Amazon and in stores, and you can see this excerpt and more about Chasing Greatness over at hacklearning.org/greatness. For more episodes, visit hacklearningpodcast.com.